Hello, everyone. My name is Amariei, and I'm the founder of ITKeyMedia. As you know, we are having regular podcasts with the pre-Series A startups from Central Eastern European companies, markets and region. And our guest today is Cornel Amariei. Bună ziua. And Cornel is the co-founder of a company called Lumen, which builds glasses that help the visually impaired people live a better life. Hello, Cornel. Bună ziua.
Hello, salutari. Very glad to be here.
Look, you're one of those guests that we've had recently that I think we could have like dozens of topics to cover, and we could spend like several hours basically of recording. So let's try and focus on the most important product. I understand that you are now developing and growing, the Lumen itself. Um, and let's start with this. Do you consider yourself, I mean, the next or already the next Elon Musk?
Well, with time, when I was younger, I was aspiring to be various people. Was it Steve Jobs? Was it Elon Musk? Was it Dieter Rams? Was multiple people? But with age, you want to become more and more of yourself and more of what you consider success is and what you consider you can have an impact in. So I don't want to be anybody else than myself. I have a huge, beautiful, and tremendously complicated life, but I wouldn't change it. And I'm not aspiring to be anybody. I'm just aspiring to do as good as I can and to have the right people around me to build the great things which can have an impact.
Then how would you describe being Cornel Amariei? What's that?
Well, a lot of ambition and very, very little sleep. That's how I will define my last for 3 or 4 days, and not just for myself, but for the entire team here at Lumen. We had a very powerful start of the year. And I think this start of the year actually shows how we are in general. We are people filled with ambition, people which realize what impact they can bring to the world. And, we work day and night and bring that impact. We are building something which can impact, which will impact the life of millions and millions of people, and that's enough for us to stay here to work day and night and to build the things which we know can have an impact. The thing is like this: what we're doing is meant at a population which technology has been developed tremendously recently, but definitely not enough. And right now, I don't until recently, unfortunately, the public perception was that building things for people with disabilities is not necessarily something which is attractive for the startup world. It
Yeah.
was kept to big pharma companies, it was kept to big players which can invest in that direction because it's so hard to make the right things in this domain. But now with time, it still is, when you're thinking of a startup, you're usually thinking of software, you're usually thinking of building an app, you're usually thinking of doing something which doesn't require the resources which we require to build what we're building. We're burning tons of cash, and we're having over 30 people at this point working, and we should be 10 times that in order to fully develop everything which we need to. But still, these are some of the reasons for which not only investors, but also the startup movement in general didn't really look at solving disabilities. It's simply way too hard. Now, after we see so much success with other directions, necessarily on social impact, but other directions in the startup world, people are beginning to ask ourselves, what is the next step? And social impact is becoming one of them. And there have been so little startups in this field. We are one of them. There maybe in the last 5 years been a few more, which had some success. We're able to raise some money. We're able to put a product on the market. There are very few we succeeded, and we're happy to be there. But yes, the tide is changing, and we're at this point, I think we're on the right part of it.
So I read between the lines a let's say positively impacting combo that you are trying to tap on is doing good at the same time being different from the crowd, because it's easier for impactful startups. It's easier to stand out from the crowd. Yes, it's not one of those millions fintech startups, or payment app and similar. But at the same time, there are also challenges, and I hope we will discuss these challenges with with you later on in the later rounds. Let's get back to the scenario, Cornel, and deal with the first round in our podcast, which is the solution or the product itself. How would you describe
Okay.
the glass that you call dot lumen
The
in a
lumen
nutshell?
glasses, we
Yeah,
call it, in
lumen
a
glasses.
nutshell.
Okay.
First of all, as much as you want me to tell you about the solution, I'm always going to start with the problem. And the problem is quite simple. There are 40 million people, blind people in the world right now, increasing to 100 million blind individuals by 2050.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the most advanced and most used mobility solution, that is the guide dog. The guide dog, however, due to various drawbacks which it has, there are only 28,000 of them. So 28,000 guide dogs to 40 million blind individuals, even if all blind people recognize that the guide dog is the most advanced solution. Those numbers are not scalable. So what we asked ourselves is, hey, can we replicate the main features and advantages of a guide dog without replicating the drawbacks which make the guide dog an unscalable solution? And let me give you some analogies because there's so many things which the Lumen glasses give and do. When you think of a guide dog, you can ask a guide dog to take you to the door. You can ask a guide dog to take you to an empty seat. You can ask the guide dog to turn left, right, forwards, and it will do so. It will take care that you're not hitting obstacles. It will avoid them. It will be able to, up to some point, navigate. We do the same things, but a bit differently. So you ask a guide dog to do something for you to take you somewhere. It will pull your hand there. You ask Lumen the same thing, it's going to pull your head. That is the main difference because we have a head mounted system. But this is just one of the features which we're implementing in the system. A guide dog is very good at determining and avoiding you from obstacles, but it has a few things which it cannot do. It cannot read, it cannot understand various contextual information, which we can in an informatic system. So this is like in a nutshell, a very simple analogy of what we're doing. We're taking the features of a guide dog and mounting it in a system which is scalable. That's pretty much the easiest way of saying it.
That's interesting. You said that the lumen glass will be reading out loud also the information from the surrounding world. I understand, right?
Not
You,
necessarily, but it is capable of reading. By reading, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna read to the blind individual. Let me give you another bit of context. We take for granted, I mean visually capable individuals such as ourselves, we take for granted how we process information and how we understand it. So, we look at an object, we look around, we always have our brain mapping the world three-dimensionally, understanding how we can interact with, understanding where we can go, where we cannot. These things we do so intuitively that we forget about them. But for a blind person, they are not capable of doing this on a visual way. This is why we use the guide dog, because the guide dog can do these things, can understand these things, and then they can help the blind individual by pulling their hand. Once you have a system which is capable of understanding and processing the information in the same way that the brain does in a visually capable individual, then it's only a challenge of offering that information to the blind. Reading is not a very good way of offering information. It's a very slow way of offering information. But specifically how we're doing it, we're still have to write a couple more patents on it, but we already have a few. So as much as I can say.
what's the current status with the not only on the patent side and like idea and ideation, but also on the actual physical product side?
Sure, sure. We actually showcased in a few teaser videos how the product is going to look and how it looks for us already because we have it over here. We have built in only the last few months over 60 prototypes. Those prototypes were tested with hundreds of blind individuals, testing everything from small features, small things like how well they fit, how comfortable it is, up to larger things, how well it is integrated in various scenarios, how well it can offer the feedback, how well it actually enhances the life of the blind. And we're going to continue to do this. We actually have a plan to reach 2,000 tests up to end of March. In terms of reaching the market, we are having, I think, 2 or 3 more months until pre-production, until we have the pre-production units. And by the second half of the year, we are going to start production. So we're already in a design for manufacturing timeline, which means that we're optimizing the product to be manufacturable. This is what we're doing. We're doing now. It means taking every component, making sure we can manufacture, simplifying it. This is in terms of hardware. In terms of software, we're continuously improving, validating, prototyping new ideas, and making sure they fit in the system. So we are going to enter the market in the second half of this year.
You mean with the product to sell now, right? That's
Yes,
the
yes,
approach.
yes.
Okay. Um, Look, on the hardware and like sensory type side of the product, it's more or less easy to foresee what you might be working on and so on. I mean, with this haptic or tactile contact and sensors of different ways. What about the software? How difficult is the software part of the product?
Well, I can give you a simple analogy. We are using autonomous driving technology, for example. You know, autonomous driving is something very similar to what we are doing, only that we're doing it on the pedestrian side. In autonomous car, you can put 60, 70, 80 kilograms of computers. We can only put a few hundred grams. So we have a huge challenge. It's incredibly difficult to build something which is reliable in this small dimension and something which can understand the world, process it, and offer the correct feedback. The last thing we want to see is a person getting hurt using the system. That's something which we simply cannot accept. So this is why it's tremendously difficult to do what we are doing.
That's what I'm asking. Of course, it's just as you say, basically, just confirming that this is driverless driving, driverless mobility in a miniature.
Yeah, it is. It is. It comes with the same challenges.
Even more because you are more confined in space.
True. We are more confined in space, but in the same time, we still have a human in the loop. We still have the blind individual as the person taking the final decision. The Lumen system doesn't take the decision for the user, but it gives all the input information on what you should do. And it gives you as much feedback information as possible so you as a blind individual can take the decision. This is still an advantage which we have over autonomous driving. It's not, we can't fail, but we know that there is a degree of error which we can accept, and that's a degree of error an autonomous car cannot have. So maybe that's a bit of a difference, which makes our life a bit more easier in some aspects, but in the same time we have the same challenges of lower weight, lower dimension, much more environments, because in the end the car only works on a street. We have to understand streets, we have to understand indoors, we have to understand outdoors, we have to understand the beach, we have to understand the shopping mall. There's so many situations which we have to understand, and that's so much more complex in terms of how many objects you must detect, how much more information you have to process. It's a tremendous amount of data, which in autonomous driving you have to do perfectly 99.9999%, and for us it's just 99% without a 0.9. But still it's challenging in the dimensions and requirements which we have.
Yeah. Also, I've been thinking about the interface that you are planning. Is there a pairing approach, or do you plan to pair the glass with the smartphone, for instance, or with
Smartphone is
the yeah?
Smartphone is an interesting accessory which you can use with the system. I'm not going to disclose more at this time, but definitely there are some features which you can do together with a smartphone.
I mean, yeah, naturally, at least smartphone could be the gateway for the information gathered by one glass into the depository of data where you
It can
can
be.
do all the magic.
It can
If it's
be.
not your plan, it should be your plan, definitely.
Don't
What
worry, we
about,
are thinking of everything.
yeah, you have so many people, I understand, in the team that definitely will cover everything. What about the pricing tag that you're planning for one pair of
Sure.
Lumen glass?
So we're looking right now at $5,000. This is our target price. Depends, $5,000 or 5,000 euros, depending on which side of the Atlantic you are. This is, again, by analogy, a guide dog. The training of a guide dog in the States, it costs between $40,000 to $60,000. That's how much it costs to train one guide dog. In Romania, for example, prices reach 15,000 euros, and I expect the same in Poland. The problem is not even the training cost. Afterwards, the maintenance and taking care of a guide dog, because it's still a pet, and it's a pet which you really have to take care of. You have to go weekly to the veterinary, and just building up the cost, you easily reach 2,000, 3,000 euro per year. So we're targeting a 5,000 euro sale price. This means that for a system which is designed, which is guaranteed for 3 years, and then it's we're expecting a lifetime of more than 3 years, roughly 6, 7 years. This is much cheaper than what you will pay for taking care of a guide dog without even the training cost. So this is our target price. This is what technology can do, can create a much cheaper solution. And with time, we actually want to decrease that price as well. For our initial market entry, it was going to be 5,000 euros or $5,000. This is our initial market entry. And then with time, as technology advances and we can reduce manufacturing cost and everything, we are going to have a lower device, a lower price device with time.
Apart from time, what factors you think would help you disrupt this product line in terms of pricing? I mean, what
Everything
would
from
make it?
from the
Yeah,
sensorics we're using, from the processing unit we're using, from the batteries we're using, everything advances, and with time we can use the best innovations in that direction as well. And this is why we expect the end of next year, beginning of 2023, actually, to have our second version. We're still discussing about the beginning the R&D for it, because there are some opportunities. We already see the roadmap of our suppliers where it's going. So we already know how much smaller it can get, and soon we're gonna find out how much more cheaper it can get. But it's a good margin. It's a good factor, and with time, more and more people are going to be able to afford this system, so we can have a larger impact than just with the initial version. We are going to B2B and B2G. This is where we are placed right now. We're not going directly B2C. So we are going to have a dealership network, which we're already building, already discussing with partners in the States, partners in Latin America, partners in the Middle East. So we're beginning to form that dealership network, and in the following months, that's going to take a quite large increase. And then we're already discussing with several governments which have an interest in our system. It is going to B2B and going to B2G. B2C at this point, it's not necessarily what we are starting with. There are already dealership networks for assistive technology which we can use. So we're going to use their experience in selling it to people with disabilities, and we're going to keep our experience in developing it and making the best product we
look,
can.
immediate question. So you're targeting the
Sure.
richest nations or the richest countries with the biggest budgets and the most advanced, you could say, social responsibility kind of mentalities. That would probably mean that big part of the population would be outside of this movement. Do you have any solutions for them as well, apart from disruption that will come with time?
So for example, yes, we have a three-step approach, which is going high purchasing power countries, medium purchasing power countries, and low purchasing power countries. High purchasing power countries means the EU, means the United States, means some countries in Asia. Then when it comes to medium purchasing power, we hope to, not hope, we planned to enter 2023. With advancements in technology, this is what we can do. But in the same time, there are programs which are beginning, and there are opportunities for such a product to reach the market even there. There are countries which, for our studies, appear as medium purchasing power, but they have programs through which you can have donations, through which you can crowdfund the purchasing of one of our systems. So it is possible that we're going to reach even sooner. We are here in the EU, and the EU has a great program for this. So the EU is already quite well formed in that. But there are some other countries which, of course, do not have it. And it comes up to lobbying, it comes up to knowing the right people and to see how you can actually bring the impact in that country as well. We don't want the blind people to pay for this system, or the blind people who can afford it, definitely. But we don't want the blind people to pay for the system. We want blind people to need the system and to request it, and somehow with the financial programs which they have in their respective country, to obtain it. This is why we're looking at insurance companies. This is why we're looking at various blind associations, various social impact associations. This is why we're looking at governments around the world.
Last question for this round. What about the pivoting or byproducts, let's say, of this work? Because I understand this huge investment of IQ and EQ and money and time and effort and sleepless nights and so on. And it does not seem to me the end of the road as far as business
No.
plans.
So the technology which we're developing is, by the technology you have today, you can't do what we are doing. So this required us to develop new technology when it comes to understanding the environment, when it comes to offering information to humans, basically neuroscience research. And because of this, we see multiple use cases for the technology. So we already have some new use cases. We're not focusing on them right now because our focus is in having the impact for which we started the company. But still, we we want at some point soon to tackle the new use cases which we found. And our use cases will still have some social impact. They're still at the core of what we're doing here. It's just in different fields. There are various disabilities which we can help. There are emergency interventions which we have the technology to fulfill. We have applications which go up to military, which is not really in the core values of what we have, but still there's such a wide array of applications for the technologies we're having. And with time, we're going to grow those areas as well. So yes, we started the technology here, we're developing disability solving hardware and software, but then we're going to pivot in new directions as well. There are a lot of things. For example, in motorsports, in racing, we've seen some application. We already began collaborating with various motorsports to see the possibility of reapplying what we're doing there. So there are a lot of things which you can do once you know how to understand the world very well, and once you know how you can communicate with the brain very well in a non-visual way. Because most of the interfaces we have now, most of the things which we do right now are using vision. But humans don't only have vision, they have multiple senses. You have hearing, you have touch, you have other senses as well. And we know quite well how to use them. And with time, we're going to know better and better and better how to use those senses. And that's core IP, which we are having in the company.
Cornel, let's move on to second round competitors. You said already that there are not that many competitors, but there are some. Who would you say are your top 2, 3 competitors, and why?
Sure. So we're having the largest assistive technology study for the blind in the world. We surpassed all literature there is at one point a few months ago. We identified over six, I think, to 700 already solutions for assistive technologies for the blind. Unfortunately, most of them are coming from research. There are research papers which were done for the simple point of having the research paper, publish it, but no intention of actually putting the product on the market or technology on the market. We are following what the big companies are doing in terms of researching, in terms of projects which they have on the inside. We're following patents to really understand what our competitors are doing, what our possible competitors are doing, because again, there's so few products on the market. And when it comes to this, we're following everything. If I would have to look at 3 different areas before naming any names, I see the area of what I call 2D information representation. So at this point, there are companies such as Orcam, which is the only, or was actually, or still is maybe, the only unicorn in the field of assistive technology for the visually impaired. They create a system which you attach on your glasses and it's able to read text. So you put a piece of text in front of you and it's going to read it to you. You put an object in front of you, it's going to describe the object. You can ask it to describe a scene and understand roughly what objects are over there. That's a very slow process. It's not something which you can use for mobility, but it's something which you can use for better understanding text, reading. There are some very nice applications there. That technology such as this for 2D information representation, they work very well for giving you information, for augmenting your information. So you have a product augmented to you, but you must already know there's a product over there. You must already know you're over there. You must already know there's some things around you in order to use them. It does nothing to really help you how you can to really explain how you can interact with the environment, how you can navigate in it, how you can have better mobility, or to even accessibilize the environment more. It does very little in that direction. And that's one, Orcam is the leader of, they are the inventor of this, but there are some other companies doing that as well at this point. Then is the other field. It comes the field of brain-machine interfaces. If I'm going to look very far on in the future, if I'm looking at things like Neuralink by Elon Musk, they are basically working on having direct contact with the brain, so you can have a very fast bandwidth connection to the brain. This is not going to be something which will be commercially available in maybe more than 10 years. This is like a timeline. More than 10 years you can see something like this commercially available, and it actually is already commercially available in other places. For example, there's a company in the States called Second Sight, which they build what is called like the Bionic Eye, popular term. It's an electromechanical system you connect to the optical nerve, and then it sends electrical impulses to the brain via the optical nerve. It is not working for every kind of visual impairment. So you must have some very specific visual impairments which do not affect the optical nerve. The optical nerve must still be fine. And with everything and all the advancements, I believe they have the technology for like 15 years already. They sold 300 implants. They cost $150,000 each, and you can only have one eye. I'm not sure if you can have more, but from what I read, you can only have one eye doing that. So second side shows how interested are people in actually having a brain machine interface, and unfortunately not very. This will change definitely, but that will change in 20, 30, 40 years. That's a reality in terms of mass adoption of a technology like this. But still, it's very good that we have it right now. And when it comes to technology such as what Neuralink is doing, 10 years, we can have maybe the first commercial system. But still, let's remember, companies such as Neuralink, they're designing the interface from the machine to the brain, or they're designing a new feedback mechanisms which we can use because we know how to understand the environment. They know how to transfer the information to the brain. They're complementary things, not necessarily competition. When it comes strictly to mobility, we're looking at only two products. We're looking at the walking cane, like the blind cane, the cane that the blind people are, the white cane, the cane that the blind people are using. And of course, there are some technological versions of it. They never really caught up. They never really had a mass adoption. Blind people still prefer the simple walking cane, and with the simple white cane, sorry. And then it comes guide dogs, which only under 30,000, or a bit over 20,000 of them, to 40 million blind individuals. So it's not a scalable solution. It's a great solution, but it's not a scalable one. In Romania, for example, I think we have 10 to 15 guide dogs, and I met a few of them and I interacted with a few of them, and of course their owners. We have some of them in our office. I actually had last week a guide dog over here, and we had a lot of fun with a guide dog, and a lot of productive discussions and ideas and tests done together with the owner. So those are the two main and not even competitors because they're complementary anyway.
Already widely spread, and so you are basically, you could say, attacking the most spread solution to the big problem. Okay.
Well, we're
Um,
definitely not attacking the guide dog. Definitely, we love guide dogs. We love the dogs. We have nothing. We have a lot of dog lovers in our office. Trust me, when a guide dog comes over here and we take the ham off the system, which has the handle on, and basically the guide dog becomes a normal dog, we have the entire fun in the world with the dog. So we are
no,
all
no, my bad, my
very
bad.
pet
I'm using,
friendly.
yeah, yeah, I'm using the like battle startup, vocabulary, but not in the direct meaning. Definitely, just wanted to say that you are approaching a market where the already used solution is not enough, and it's the most widespread solution. You know what? Another question. Let's just jump back to the product solution. How
Sure.
much time? Yeah, how much time a new visually impaired person needs to fully interact, based on your recent pilots, I understand, to fully understand the hardware and to fully interact and to use it
Sure.
to full extent and to full capacity and
To full
potential.
extent, it takes a few weeks. So
Okay.
to full extent, it takes a few weeks of training of use. The basic features you get quite wide. Sorry, the basic features you get quite well quite soon. Just a few hours of use, and you're already quite comfortable with some of the things. By comparison, a guide dog you take 6 weeks of training together with a trainer until you can be confident in taking it outside. We are aiming at the same or even less. So it depends a lot. We have more options than what a guide dog can do. We build hardware on which software is continuously updated, so new features are always part of the system. And with time, there are going to be more and more features which are helpful to the visually impaired. So the basic functionality you can get in a few hours. In a few days, you can already begin exploring the world, and in a few weeks, you can be very comfortable with the system. It depends a lot on how secure or how secure the blind individual feels on exploring the world, because it's something new for them. But in the same time, you can put a device on, and if you have your walking cane, or if you're already if you have your white cane and you're already comfortable navigating outdoors, the system will not stop you from doing so. You can actually learn by simply doing it. So you can still use your old means. You can still use your guide dog. You can still use your white cane and navigate, and also have the system. And even better, because you can correlate from what you know with the new technology which you have on your head. So that's a bit of a difference from a guide dog, a bit of a difference from a guide dog For a guide dog, you do need a lot of training. It is a bit different from the white cane, because for the white cane you also need training. But again, this product is for people who already know how to use the white cane, because you must know how to navigate outdoors. With time and with systems which are going to be optimized for children, that might actually change the paradigm a bit. And we're considering it, and we're studying what impact can that have, because if we're right now, the system which we're developing is for adults. With time, maybe the second iteration, we're considering bringing it to children. Children, depending a lot, to some of the children, depending on the country, learn to use the white cane when they are in middle school. Some of them learn it in high school, depends. Some of them learned in university, unfortunately. And if we ship the product as available solution in like primary school or in middle school, that might actually change a bit the paradigm of using a white cane. I'm still confident that the white cane is a solution which most blind individuals should first use. So once you know how to explore the environment, once you have your backup solution, which it's an extension of you, it's a white cane, then you can actually bring a system such as ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could call it as a secondary level feedback system, or kind of redundancy for security, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
building up this redundancy of the two systems combined. I mean, White Cane and the Lumen itself. And then, yeah, interesting, of course. And then with the dog there, is there a risk, by the way, from your experience? Is there a risk of character mismatch with the dog? Does it
Yes,
happen?
definitely.
So this
Yes, it
is
does
one
happen.
problem. And with the machine, you have just you have you need to learn to read the signals rather than
Definitely.
interact actively,
Well,
right?
it
So
is an
that's
interaction. It is an interaction, but the machine
okay.
doesn't really have a personality.
Yeah.
It's it's unfortunate reality. We consider the guide dog a solution, but it's still a pet. It still has moods. You can
Yeah.
still get sick. You
Yeah.
have to take tremendous care of it, of your guide dog. And there are moments when the performance declines because of personality. It's true. It's happening. There are. I know quite a few blind people with guide dogs which have beautiful relations with their guide dogs, but I also know people who simply couldn't adapt because they simply didn't fit in personality. They simply didn't fit in the way of communicating with a guide dog. But the guide dog is not a repeatable system. One day you can do something, the second day you can get sick. I know guide dogs which just a recent example. I'm thinking of the guide dog which we had last week over here. Her hobby is to eat food from the ground. It's still a dog, so it does that, and it can get sick. And whenever it's doing that, the owner does not know because it gets smart and you know how to hide it, and you can and the owner asks the guide dog if he did that, and of course the guide dog signals no, but it actually did. So it's an actual personality. You're having another living being next to you, which is a very smart being. Which if you have a dog, what I'm talking about is still a pet.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pet which is incredibly trained, but it's still a living being, and it still has the same thing as you and me. When we're mad, when maybe don't get the best decisions, the same for the guide dog.
Yeah.
When they are distressed, they will not take the best decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coming back to your competitors, Cornel, you mentioned Orcam,
Yeah.
and what do you think about Messi being the ambassador, and having in mind that there's a guy now best in the world coming from Central Eastern Europe, Roberto Lewandowski? Have you thought of approaching Roberto maybe to become your ambassador?
We're thinking of quite a few first people, and we
Okay.
are actually going to announce something in the following, I think, month. But let's say month and a half. We already have an ambassador. Our first public
Okay.
ambassador, we already signed, and everything is going to happen in the
Wow.
following 6 weeks. It's it's again, I'm happy that people such as Messi promote technology studies, but of course it's a paid contract. I mean, you can imagine that behind it is still a paid contract, it's still everything. It's pure PR what is happening there. And it's unfortunate because or maybe not, maybe I don't really know how the contract situation works between Messi and Orca. Maybe I'm wrong, but I still think it's a marketing effort behind. Um, in our case, hopefully it's the same for Orca, but I don't know. In our case, our first media personality, which is going to represent the product, they actually came to us. So they actually came to us because they really like what we're doing and really wanted to promote this. And it's coming from motorsports. It's coming from let's say the top motorsport there is, but that's as much as I can say. And with time, there are more people which we are discussing already with, or which we are starting communication means. At the stage at which we are, we're right now opening our Series A round. It's incredible to have the people which we have around us. And to give you my opinion, my direct opinion of Messi and Orcam, I really like that somebody such as Messi with their reach can bring awareness about visual impairment. Orcam is not really in the same field as we are. They are going to visual impairment, we're going to blindness. They are a bit different. Still, blindness is a subsector of visual impairment. But what Orcam is doing is optimized for people who have low vision, very bad vision, but not for people who have no vision, like our case. So the good part and what I really like is that somebody like such as Messi is promoting and it's raising awareness on accessibility, raising awareness on disabilities, especially visual ones. What I think, on the other hand, I know how expensive that can be.
Yeah.
And if I look at the solutions which are available right now for the visually impaired, Orcam was incredible 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Right now, I have a free iPhone app, which is made by Microsoft. It's called Seeing AI, and it's free. It's developed for free by the guys in Seattle at Microsoft, and it does more than Orcam does, and it does it better. It does use internet. That's a difference. It does use internet, and Orcam does not. But what Seeing AI does, and if you have an iPhone, please download it and try it out, is better than what Orcam is doing. So a blind individual can get for free, if they have an iPhone, and most do, because it is the most accessible smartphone for them, for free, they can have better functionality than what Orcam offers. So for me, I love the fact that the Messi is promoting accessibility and assistive technology, but I think that Orcam is doing this in order to increase their market share. That's what I think is happening. And I don't want to say it's unfortunately, maybe even Messi came and he decided to do this. And I'll be very happy and I'll be very glad. And this is how we should do. Because again, the people at Orcam are trying to have an impact, such as we do. And we respect the people at Orcam. But for me, seeing that an app can do more than a product developed in the last 5 years by a company specialized in this, it might seem that they're not really going in the right direction at this point. And I don't know what you're going to release next. We're trying to figure it out, but 1% of us is trying to figuring out what's happening next for our competitors. 99% of us are trying to figure out how we can have a better social impact and how we can build a better product for the blind.
Cornel, round three, ups and downs for the company, and let's try to avoid mentioning COVID-19 related kind of issues and challenges. That's what everybody has gone through, definitely. What would you say is the biggest success of the company for the last year or so?
First of all, Lumen as a company, it was previously a research project. So it was kept by myself, by my co-founder Gabriel, as a research project founded by us and a few of our employees from various companies which we were in or which we were leading at that point. But as a company, as a startup, Lumen began existing in 2020. So Lumen is not 1 year old at this point. It's a research project which transformed to a startup months ago, 9 months ago, I think. I have to count. We are not 1 year old yet. So the biggest success by far for us is not funding the company, is actually being able to find amazing people which believe in what we're doing to join, be them investor, be them, of course, the team, which is here day and in some cases nights. As right now I'm looking at the office and there are quite a few people still here. Of course, I'm enclosed in my office. I'm going to clean everything before I'm going to put my mask on back before going back to them. We always are very, very keeping the best of safety as we can do here regarding the pandemic. So the biggest success is having and identifying people which are willing to work with us and to work together in order to solve and to build a better product for the visually impaired. There are very few of us who actually are coming from a background having relatives with disabilities, having relatives which have visual impairment. There are very few of us who actually have that here. So I always thought it was going to be very difficult to find people. I always thought it was going to be very difficult to find investors, but I was so amazed about how people want to be part of this And even before we exited being a stealth company where we operated in stealth mode until a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months. And even before that, I remember we wanted to recruit like 5 software engineers and we had 500 applicants. So it's amazing how much interest it is for people to actually have an impact. And just to give you a perspective, there are corporations here in our area which have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 employees, and they don't get 500 applications in a month. And we did. So that's absolutely amazing. And I'm amazed about the interest that people are having in what we're doing. And I'm amazed by the fact that everybody wants to help.
So the team of people of relatively similar, mentality as far as impactful life and impactful careers, you could say as well, right? It's something like we could mention what Simon Sinek, right? With this start with why, like
Yeah.
why you're doing that. Yeah. What about the failures? But again, be
Failures.
honest. Failure. Yeah,
Where,
be
where,
honest.
where do I start?
Okay, guys, next
We had.
podcast will be dedicated to Cornel's failures only. See you later. Bye bye.
Yeah, well, maybe a few of them. Of course, you can imagine we had failures in terms of fundraising, not necessarily because we took hard no's. We actually had very few no's in investing in us. We were simply very selective of who we brought in as investors. But in terms of how things were happening, for example, when we closed our first investment round, when we the money were not transferred, not all contracts were signed, COVID just broke. So exactly in that second, I will remember before the lockdown, a few days before the lockdown, I met the investor group. We shook hands and everything, and the lawyers were working on the papers, and then COVID struck, and then for a month, 2 months, we were trying to understand what is happening, and I fully understood the investor. They had none of them backed, so nobody ever backed. It was just a lot of delay because nobody knew what was happening at the beginning of the pandemic. We were at home. We were trying to solve, okay, how we got, because we had the resources to work, but we're just trying to understand, okay, what are we gonna do next, because this is the runway which we have, and we know we signed the deal, but this, when is it coming? But it got solved. And the reason I tell that as a failure, because not a failure for anybody, it was just a natural ways of happening. We were all scared at the beginning of the pandemic, and most of us still are. The reason why it was failures, because I really understood I could have solved the situation in 2 days, but I didn't really necessarily was paying enough attention at that point. And if
What
I
do you mean?
would have,
What do you mean? How? How?
when it comes to the legal work, when it comes to
I
pressing the
see.
right buttons, when it comes to really doing the due diligence correctly and having calling your investors and keeping a good relation with them. It was the beginning of the pandemic. Everybody was focusing on pretty much everything else, and if and that's the lesson I learned very clearly. If which I'm not going to repeat now. If I would have done it again, I would have solved the issue in 2 days, not in a month. So that was a very crazy
I
month for us.
see.
That's one of the failures. We have failed timelines. We have some things which we believe we can do faster, and we have failed. We have failed in terms of some of the testing. We done tests which were not necessarily as relevant, but we at some point we thought they were. We insisted, and then we found out we were not. So we in we had a lot of theories which were bad, but we had to test them. And a lot of colleagues, I remember in the beginning and in the last month, the beginning was like months ago, but the speed which we're moving, the beginning feels like years ago. But I remember there were a lot of colleagues which were discouraged by the fact that we spent a lot of time and money and effort in testing something and building something which did not work. And they came to me, why did we even spend so much time? And why did we do it if I mean, they were not, because it was not necessarily why, because we didn't know if we're going to work or not. People were very discouraged, and I just told them, okay, if somebody else wants to do what we did, don't you think they're going to try this as well? And they said, well, maybe. And I say, okay, then we just passed that, and they have to do it, and we did it. We checked the mark. It's not working. Doesn't matter. We're not going to tell what's not working. We know that it's not working now, and nobody else in the world knows. So those are failures. Even before starting Lumen as a company, as a research project, one of the biggest failures is that I could have started it a bit sooner. I could have definitely started a bit sooner. The investor group which I have right now and which we have right now, we actually know them for I think at least 6 months before founding the company, but it never crossed my mind to do it that way, and that's a failure.
And
Failing every day.
yeah, Cornel, then what made you think of founding a company formally and switching from research project as a side kind of project, I understand, into a formal and enterprise?
Well, it was clear for us that that is the mechanism, but it was clear for us from the beginning that is the mechanism.
No. What
Entrepreneurship
was
is
the
the
trigger? What was the trigger? You know, like months ago, you were a research project with guys that you like, and you're doing this as a hobby, almost. I mean, passion, hobby, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you understand now is the time for a company. What was the trigger?
it had a lot to do with the technology. That was the point at which we knew that this can be done. That was the point which we're sure, I think 6 months before of that this can be done. We pivoted for the exact direction of what we are, I think roughly 5 months before starting the company. And that is the moment when we knew this can be done. That is the moment when I completely left my left the corporate world again. Previously to this, I had a management role in innovation in a large automotive manufacturer and company.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get out of that role. It was a very interesting part. We had impact over there. We were building amazing things, but I was feeling I was not doing enough, especially with the background I'm having. I was born in a family where both of my parents have locomotive disabilities and my sister has cerebral paralysis. So I grew up in a very different house, in a very different environment, which made me more sensitive to creating things which help. And when I realized this can be a solution, I said, okay, let me start my exit plan from the position I had in the company, in which I was implicated, and begin working towards this. And it took a bit longer, and I could have done it faster. But the flip was the moment, okay, this is working, this can work, this is something which we can bring on the market, let's do it. I called Professor Dr. Gabriel, my co-founder, and I said, Gabriel, let's do it. And he said, okay, let's do it. Then, okay, after a few more months after that, company was funded, first investors were attracted. It was interesting. It was interesting because even if it was a research project, it was funded from my money, from Gabriel's money. And so the moment when I completely quit, and I was basically, jobless, let's call it this way. I didn't have I'm not completely jobless because I do have my other businesses in which I'm implicated, but are now 100% of my time is in Lumen. I'm a silent partner in the other things. But that point, there was no coming back. It was the point of no return. The second I did that, I actually did not know what to do in case this was not working. So it was a leap of faith, and it worked. But it was a large leap of faith. Even if at that time I did not project it as this, I projected it as being a very smooth transition. It was a leap of faith.
Cornel, let's move on to round 4. And speaking, you mentioned Gabriel, one of your co-founders. There's another co-founder, and this is Michał Iwaszku. Is that so?
Yeah.
So in a very brief kind of description of the team itself, let's start with the founding team. What I'm usually interested in, how you divide your roles in the founding team, and if you are 100% involved, and what's like the labor division in the founding team. Then describe a little bit about the whole company, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So basically, as founders, is myself, Gabriel, and Mihai. We have founded the company. The research project was funded by me and Mihai and Gabriel, Dr. Gabriel, to have the correct nomination for his role. But still, myself and Dr. Gabriel were the founders of the research project, and then Mihai joined to build the company. Mihai leads the fundraising. Mihai leads business development and sales. This is on him, of course, with my support, with support from the crew, and so on. Gabriel leads the technical part of things, but also quite well also in the operational side. With time, we're going to divide the roles even more in terms of having more people helping us on the operational, more people helping us on some very specific things. But at this point, if I would have to take everything that we're doing and absolutely every aspect we're doing, 1% I do it, 1% Gabriel does it. So if I'm going to take everything out of the team which we have and only concentrate on the founding 3 members, most of the competencies we have there, of course, we could only do it at 0.1% compared to what the team is doing it. But this is roughly complementary skill set and knowledge which we have in the three members which we founded the company. Mihai on the business side, myself on leading project management and technical, and Gabriel fully on technical and operational. This is how roughly we are split. In terms of background, Gabriel is not only university professor, but also it's coming. He founded his own research group in university, founded his own research companies. They build everything from household items sold in millions of units up to electronics for satellites, which is quite amazing to know people which done that. Mihai has its own. He's the CEO of the M3 group and the founder of Modex blockchain, Modex Technologies, which is a powerful blockchain player. I think they already closed around at a 300 million evaluation, something like that. So it's he's a very good fundraiser. He's a very good person when it comes to funding companies, when it comes to leading them. And we're learning a lot together, and I'm learning a lot from him as well. And then when it comes to the team, we have everything from software mechanics, industrial design, product design, testing a lot, electronics, if I'm not already said it, psychology, neuroscience. It's a very, very, very complementary set of skills. To build something as large as this, you need a quite large number of people. And even if right now we are 35, I think almost 40 people in the company, it's we're still not enough. That's the reality. We're still not enough, and we're still going to grow. And it's amazing to be able to sustain something like this.
Are you hiring now? And if yes, for what roles? What are the
In
most
this
pressing?
second, no. In this second, we're not hiring. Why? Because we had a very powerful scale up. We enlarged the team almost four times in a very short period of time. And somebody told me a great analogy, and I really liked it. When you're scaling up a company, is like climbing stairs. So you climb, you climb, you climb, but then you have no more air. Sometimes you also have to plateau a bit and begin, catching your breath, catching some energy, and then you scale again. So we are going to scale again. I'm not going to disclose exactly when, most probably very soon. We're going to do it non-publicly, so we're just going to recruit from our network and so on. But publicly, that is going to happen as well. Again, we plan to reach 70 to 100 people by the end of the year. So that's an immense growth.
Just as a side note, would you be open to people contributing to the company out of their own free time and knowledge and experience and like expertise anywhere in the world? If they like the idea and they see how this could be improved, even not even for money. I mean, just because they have an idea, would you be open for that? And would you be welcoming such
It
contributions?
depends. It depends. That's the answer. So for example, we have an advisory board, and we're going to grow the advisory board as well. But I respect, and a lot of people are contacting us that they want to help, and that can only please me. That can only make me very, very happy. Reality is we really don't have that many resources when it comes to time. We spend all of our time in building as good as a product as we can do, and always when you have new people, it takes a while. So as much as I would like to let the people who want to help, and maybe with time we're going to find a way in which more people can contribute, because we do have some ideas in that direction. We just didn't really advance that much with them, but with time we're going to do that. We can make a program which you can voluntarily help, and make it a public program, make it a program to which people can be proud that they contributed to this. And that's something which we actually have in the back of our mind. It's we have it in the backlog. It's not something we're focusing right now, but seeing the immense amount of people who are interested in helping, we're considering it. And that's something which I think we're going to do this year at some point, maybe later in the year. I think we're going to do that. As we grow more and more, as we have more resources and we can actually pilot a program like this, it will be a very great moment. We're thinking, especially in the direction of young people, having some social programs over there in which they can actually help. And there are ways in which they can actually help. They're quite interesting. And we're going to see what happens. It's in our backlog.
Yeah. I think you should definitely go for something like crowd ideation kind of I don't know, platform or solution, or just platform for people globally to contribute, to take part, and that would take one or two people from the team to manage.
True.
to scale this or to grow and then manage this interaction with people all around the world. Cornel, let's move on to round 5, and we call this Formula F3, funding for the future. How has the company been funded by now, and what are your funding plans for this year?
Sure. So last year, which was a pandemic year, it's our first year of existence. Again, we're still not 1 year old, but for last year we raised over €1 million. So that's like over $1.2 million, but it's a bit more than that. So I'm not going to fully disclose the exact amount. What we're doing now, we're opening our Series A round, and that is reaching quite a bit more. We're looking at a roughly 10x increase. In order to put a product on the market, in order to begin production and shipping the product, that requires a bit more. And this is what we're happening. We are opening our Series A round quite soon. And once we open it, a lot of interesting things are happening. We're already whitelisting various investor groups. So if there is interest, you know where to find me.
What do you mean by whitelisting investors?
Even if the Series A round is not open, we're already offering the opportunity for people to book a slot. Let's put it this way. It's a way of doing a round, especially larger rounds. If there's initial interest and some people really want to make sure that they're part of the ticket, well, part of the ticket is a very political term. If they're part of the round, then it's an opportunity for them for already investing.
Who are your ideal investors, potentially?
Right now, I'm looking a lot on people who are coming from big pharma, for people who are coming from med tech, especially technology in medicine and technology, not necessarily strictly medicine, because Lumen, even if it sounds like a med tech product, and it is a med tech product, it's not a pure med tech product. It doesn't go to the same regulation as other medicinal products. So because of this, we are looking at people which have experience in putting technology on the market, assistive technology on the market, to be very, very clear. There are a few investors which did this, unfortunately not that many. And we're already looking at them, already considering what we can do together. So definitely people who have experience in putting something like this on the market. This is what we're looking, people who have access to dealership networks, people who can help us with that. Let me put the other way, what are not the biggest pain points for us. So technology is something which we have to our core. Research and development is something we have to our core. Manufacturing is something that we have to our core. We do know business development, we do know sales, we do have that experience, but those are also the areas which must grow exponentially, incredibly fast. We know how to grow exponentially in terms of manufacturing, research and development, and everything. And we need people who can help us to grow exponentially in business development, sales, network, social impact, because that's also a new thing in which we're part of. So people who are coming from social impact, who previously invested in such companies with great success, people who previously invested in assistive technologies, this is what we're looking at.
And let's not forget about the governmental relations
Definitely.
as well.
Part of sales and marketing.
Interesting. The last question probably would be, Cornel, what's the exit scenario? Do you have an exit scenario for this company?
You can imagine that we already are considering it, and we do have a strategy over there, but it's not something at which I'm looking at this point. It's something which our board is looking, it's something which we are considering. So we're doing our job in having it and being it a good direction for the company in the future. But that does not motivate me necessarily. I founded this company to have an impact. In the same time, as much as I want to have an impact, I'm not, let me rephrase that. As much as we founded a company to have an impact, and this is what drove me to start a company, we have to look at sustainability. So a project such as Lumen cannot exist if it's not sustainable. And an exit is something which would permit for Lumen to be part of a big pharma group, which is one of the directions which we're strongly considering. It can be an exit towards big tech. Up to some point, parts of the technology can go to big tech. But more than anything, big pharma is the closest to what can help Lumen to spread even more globally. And again, we founded a company to have an impact. And if an exit is the thing which is going to bring the impact and going to be able to scale it quite quickly, then we're going to be part of that. I founded this not for money. I founded this for making meaning. And I'm amazed about how much interest is and how sustainable something like this can be.
Yeah, great. But I hoped also to get an impactful exit scenario response from you, kind of. I
No, in a
thought you
few
would say
years.
something like, Alex, in 5, 10 years, when everybody in the world can afford a Lumen glass, that would be a great exit for me. Great
Well,
exit or transfer to another problem.
maybe to give you an answer,
Yeah,
and even not another answer, because the same answer again. For me, it's about having an impact. If we can reach 100,000 people or 500,000 people by ourselves, but after we do an exit to a big pharma, we can reach 5 millions. Then I think it's a very good deal to make.
yeah, yeah. Again.
Uh, I would be happy to think of an exit strategy, not just think because we already thought of it, but I would be happy to spend more time in terms of an exit strategy the moment I know that there are more Lumen devices than guide dogs. The moment when that is happening,
I see.
I
Okay.
know that I did my job.
Yeah, yeah. The tipping point. Yeah. Yeah, great, Cornel. We are in the beginning of 2021. What pearls of wisdom would you share with the fellow startup founders, let's say in Central Eastern Europe or in Romania,
More than
yeah,
Central Eastern Europe, I think they are pretty much the same struggles. I mean, in Poland, you have a much better ecosystem than what happens in Romania. This is why we actually Lumen in Romania is not very well suited and fit in the ecosystem of Romanian startup. That's a reality. We do have most of our investors from outside of Romania and actually outside of CE. We have them from Western Europe or from other continents as well. Biggest advice, it's the same thing I'm guiding my life, basically my business ethos on it. It's making meaning, not money. And what I mean by making meaning is actually building things which help. So this is what I'm doing. For everything I'm doing, I'm building things which are helping, things which can have an impact, things which can make people smile and which can make their life a bit better. And this is what I'm doing, and this is my recommendation: make meaning, not money, because money will come after. If you prioritize understanding a problem and coming with a solution, but really understanding, really bringing a solution which helps, inevitably you will get to the money at some point. If you find a startup because you're in love with the solution, or if you find a startup because you're in love with the opportunity of money, most probably you're going to fail. We founded Lumen because we wanted to make meaning and to have an impact on the people with severe visual impairment. So find your meaning more than anything. Really find your meaning, and then money will come.
yeah, yeah. Great. Thanks, Cornel. That was a rewarding conversation. Definitely, we'll keep an eye and hope to get notified when your Series A is successful.
Thank you so much.
So, Lumen, everyone, they have just got out of stealth mode, formed the company, closed the first seed round, and are going to open the Series A round this year, somewhat this year, several times higher than the previous round. Now, even if Lumen Glass seems a bit far-fetched idea at this very moment, it definitely should have, if successful, far-reaching positive impacts on the lives of many, many millions of people around the world. And I think if more people tried to have a look around through Cornell's eyes, focusing on high meaning rather than high or only high returns, the world around us would be a much better place. That's it for now. All the best. Bye bye.